Hello, dear viewers. It's been a while since we last met. I'm China Research, and this time we're going to discuss a unique entity in Xinjiang, China. Many of you may recall that in Chinese news reports, there is often a phrase mentioning the 34 provincial level administrative regions, municipalities, and autonomous regions, along with the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. As the only corps singled out in China, people from other provinces are both familiar and unfamiliar with the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. So why does China continue to maintain this core unit to this day? And what role has this corps played in Xinjiang? Let me tell you about the history and function of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. Speaking of the history of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, it can be traced back to the period of the Liberation War. With the defection of General Tao Zuiwei, commander of the Kuomintang Xinjiang Provincial Guard, who issued a radio message announcing his uprising on September 25, 1949, the peaceful liberation of Xinjiang began. These defectors, together with the 2nd and 6th Armies under the command of General Wang Jin of the 1st Field Army of the People's Liberation Army, numbered around 170,000 troops, becoming part of the PLA station in Xinjiang. In January 1950, in order to consolidate border defense and accelerate development. To alleviate the economic burden on the local government and ethnic peoples of Xinjiang, Mao Zedong ordered the troops stationed in Xinjiang to put away their weapons of combat and pick up the tools of production and construction. The PLA forces stationed in Xinjiang were to focus their main efforts on production and construction. On January 21, the Xinjiang military region issued a special order. All military personnel were to participate in labor and production. No one was to stand outside of the labor and production process. In October of the same year, the central government of China ordered the 2nd and 6th Armies, the majority of the 5th Army, and all of the 22nd Corps of the People's Liberation Army stationed in Xinjiang to collectively and locally transition from active duty military to civilian status, disengaging from the Defense Force roster. They were to form the Production and Construction Corps of the Xinjiang Military Region of the People's Liberation Army. In fact, as early as when Commander Wang Jin was about to lead the PLA into Xinjiang, Mao Zedong had instructed him, hoping that once you reach Xinjiang, you will surpass Zhuozongtang and build Xinjiang into a beautiful and prosperous paradise. This shows that the Communist Party of China attached great importance to the construction of Xinjiang right from the beginning. Here, it must be pointed out that many people have a significant misunderstanding about the development of Xinjiang. They do not understand why battle-hardened PLA officers and soldiers, after enduring hardships and fighting countless battles, were to take root in what was then barren land, rather than being demobilized to return home. In fact, if one looks at the situation in China at that time, one would understand why it was necessary to gradually establish 12 production and construction corps across the country to undertake production and construction tasks. Many people romanticize the Republican era as one of gentle breezes and fine rain, with women in Cheongsams strolling under bamboo umbrellas everywhere, and scenes of idyllic water buffalo and rice paddies abound. In stark contrast, one of the biggest problems in China at the time was the dual collapse of ecological environment and social order. Even in the relatively better natural conditioned areas of southern Jiangnan, due to war, natural disasters, and the Nationalist Party's plundering among other reasons, the area was already desolate. Moreover, bandits and thieves were rampant everywhere. Under such circumstances, forget about resuming production, many ordinary people could barely hope to survive. If conditions were like this in the Jiangnan region, the newly liberated Xinjiang was even worse off. When Xinjiang was first liberated, due to long-term oppression by the nationalists and local warlords, the entire region's economy was in dire straits. Especially in rural areas, at that time, on average, only one household out of 3 had an ox for plowing, and only one household out of 2 had farming tools, with per capita grain possession being only 195 kilograms. The international standard is 400 kilograms per person. At the same time, Xinjiang is vast, but back then, the natural environment was far from ideal, and there was a severe lack of infrastructure, making the transportation of supplies extremely difficult. Just solving the living material needs for the 200,000 or so troops stationed in Xinjiang was a major challenge. If grain was transported from within the customs, mainland China, due to the long distance, the transportation cost was 7 times the price of the grain itself. If grain was imported from the Soviet Union, a ton of grain cost 300 rubles. For 200,000 people, 100,000 tons of grain would be needed, which would be a huge sum of 30 million rubles, equivalent to hundreds of millions of RMB in fees. And yet, the fiscal revenue of the Xinjiang local government in 1949, converted into RMB, was only 350,000 yuan. At that time, the Minister of Logistics of the Xinjiang military region. We need to transport $1 from Beijing by plane every month to purchase grain. Apart from material difficulties, the unfounded slander of the remaining forces of the Kuomintang who are unwilling to accept it is also one of the 2 major calamities in Xinjiang. They kill and set fire to people, plundering from all directions, commit all manners of crimes. So in this situation, after several years of construction and combat, they not only solved their own food and clothing problems, it also eliminated various bandits and remnants of the Kuomintang that had long ravaged Xinjiang. Thanks to the efforts of the officers and soldiers of the People's Liberation Army, they hold shovels in one hand and guns in the other. It only took a few years. It has brought about earth-shattering changes in Xinjiang. By 1953, the industrial output value of Xinjiang had reached 36 times that of 1949. In October 1954, the Production and Construction Corps of the PLA Xinjiang military region was officially established. Although this system was once abolished for various reasons, in December 1981, the Chinese central government decided to restore the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, changing its name from the Production and Construction Corps of the PLA Xinjiang military region to the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. From then on, Xinjiang's history entered a new phase, one primarily focused on economic development. In 1990, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps' national economy and social development were placed under a separate state planning category, making it a unique entity on par with provinces, municipalities, and autonomous regions, a status that has continued to the present day. As an extraordinarily unique unit, just how special is the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps? Firstly, this corps is the largest in the world, bar none, as the total population of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps exceeds 3 million. Secondly, the functions of this corps are also quite distinctive. If you need further details about the specific functions or more historical context, please let me know. I can provide additional information or clarify any points of interest. There is a catchphrase describing him. The military has no budget. The government is required to pay taxes. Enterprises manage society. Farmers join the guild. You can tell from this rhyme. The Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps is responsible for the duties of a large local government. As of 2020, Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps has 14 divisions and cities under its jurisdiction. The Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps implements a unified management system of division and city and county-level cities directly under the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Of particular note is the development speed of Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps is still very fast. In 2023, the number of private market entities in Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps exceeded 22,000. Among them, private enterprises have exceeded 50,000 households. More than 2,600 private enterprises above designated size have been established. About 77% of the total number of enterprises above a certain scale in the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. Thanks to the efforts of these enterprises, Xinjiang's Production and People's League have achieved a gross domestic product of nearly 370 billion yuan. About 1/5 of the entire Xinjiang. On par with some provinces and cities. It is worth mentioning that in 2023, the total assets of state-owned and state-controlled enterprises in the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps reached 726.398 billion yuan, increased by 15.3% compared to the previous year. Accumulated total profit of 4.785 billion yuan. Increased by 67.04% compared to the previous year. In addition to rapid economic development. As of the end of 2019, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps is also unwavering in education. The Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps has 627 schools of all levels and types. Approximately 540,000 students in school. 48,000 faculty members. Provided a continuous talent pool for the development of the Corps. So it is precisely with such formidable strength that the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps can become a qualified entity on par with other provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities directly under the central government in China. It is precisely because the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps is so important. So they can become an important force for the development of Xinjiang. All the time. Some countries have great malice towards the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. They are simply spreading rumors. It is hard to say that the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps has occupied the so-called good places, only then can it develop and grow stronger. However, taking a closer look at the history of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, you will know how absurd this statement is. When the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps was first established, their location is mostly barren land. The living conditions are extremely harsh. Many places that look great now. At that time, it was almost unsuitable for human survival. But the members of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps rely on their own hands. I firmly rooted myself here and turned barren lands into fertile land for thousands of miles. And one very important thing is, the Corps has the discipline and organization of the troops. They can quickly implement a large number of new ideas and things. For example, Xinjiang cotton, which is now renowned worldwide. They signed the Shahizi Cotton Harvest Agreement with Professor Daitov, a Soviet cotton planting expert, introducing Xinjiang, and founded the first higher education institution in the Army, Agricultural College. Vigorously promote cotton planting technology. As early as 1952, the Corps began to vigorously promote cotton cultivation in the Manas River Basin. And the following year, it achieved an unprecedented harvest in over 30,000 acres of cotton fields. This is the first daifengshu, salad of assorted fresh vegetables, of cotton in Xinjiang. Complete great initiatives. The People's Daily published a headline news about this. In the coming decades, Corps personnel continuously improve cotton quality. Make Xinjiang cotton one of the best cotton varieties in the world. If you imagine, if there is no Corps, relying solely on promotion to encourage people without cotton planting experience to plant on a large scale, that must be unrealistic. The promotion of Xinjiang cotton, which will also make significant contributions to the country and the people, will be greatly delayed. Except for cotton, they also mobilized their intelligence and wit, planting high-quality watermelons in the desert in Gobi, raising tilapia and California basin saline alkali water in the desert of the city. It has also formed an industrial chain, created enormous commercial value. Apart from agriculture, the construction of the Corps' personnel and industry is also not inferior. For example, Alor City, the first division of Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, located on the northern edge of the Taklamakan Desert. This industrial new city was built entirely from scratch back then. Corps members start from scratch on the barren Gobi Desert. Everyone through their own hard work and struggle. Nowadays, more than 2,000 enterprises of various types have gathered, becoming an important production base for the three major textile raw materials of cotton fiber, viscose fiber, and polyester fiber. We also witnessed the largest scale of dyeing and finishing in Xinjiang. The most comprehensive printing and dyeing system in terms of printing and dyeing categories. At the same time, they are all in the Gobi Desert area. A photovoltaic project with a total area of approximately 100,000 acres and an installed capacity of 330 million gigawatts has been completed. There are many other similar examples. For example, Tiancong Biopharmaceutical Company, Limited, a subsidiary of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. The Titan production base is one of the world's largest and most advanced fully automated production lines for foot and mouth disease vaccines, capable of producing nearly 3 billion milliliters of various veterinary vaccines annually. It can be said that it is thanks to the hard work and struggle of several generations of soldiers in the Corps. We have just built the prosperous and thriving land of the Corps that we see today. No matter how Western countries smear and spread rumors, they cannot change this fact. Apart from being responsible for industrial and agricultural production, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps has also made significant contributions to the infrastructure construction in Xinjiang. When the predecessors of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps first arrived in Xinjiang, the transportation here is extremely inconvenient. This has greatly restricted Xinjiang's communication with the outside world. Not only is it difficult to develop the economy, it also hinders communication between Xinjiang and other regions. So at the beginning of the establishment of the Corps, collaborating with other sister units to develop infrastructure in Xinjiang has become one of their most important missions. In the decades since the establishment of the Corps, their cultivated land covers an area of over 93,000 hectares. Not only large-scale land reclamation and cultivation, further develop water conservancy projects. The Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps follows dozens of rivers within the territory of Xinjiang, construct 105 reservoirs of various sizes, excavate over 4,470 channels. The total length reaches 52,200 kilometers. Besides, facing the endless yellow sand, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps also vigorously carries out afforestation, windbreak, sand fixation, salt removal, alkali production, and other work. Over the past few decades, the afforestation area has reached more than 120,000 hectares, made indelible contributions to the construction of a beautiful Xinjiang. Besides greening the home, in order to shoulder the heavy responsibility of energy green and low-carbon transformation and development in the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps will establish Zhongxin Electric Power Group Company, Limited on September 1, 2023. Vigorously develop green and clean energy. It is thanks to the efforts of the Corps enterprises. They have provided a large amount of valuable energy supply for the entire Xinjiang and its surrounding areas, made significant contributions to the industrial development of Xinjiang. The story of Xinjiang in the 1970s in the Construction Corps. It is a loyal hymn in itself. During the Revolutionary War era, they are fearless in battles and battles, maintained the unity of the country and the happiness of the people. In the era of peacebuilding, they endure hardship and have no complaints, transforming Xinjiang from a poverty-stricken region with lagging indicators into a place like a treasure trove that can now radiate throughout Central Asia, South Asia, and even the world. It can be said that if the audience is interested in traveling to Xinjiang, so it is recommended to visit the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps Military Reclamation Museum located in Shihizi City. This records the glorious experience of the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps for decades. It is also a microcosm of the magnificent development history of Xinjiang over the past few decades. Thank you for watching this video. That's all for this episode of the video. Hope everyone likes, follows, collects, and shares more. This is really important to us. See you in the next video.